Hello everyone. Welcome here. Welcome to this lesson, Independence Made Easy. For those of you who don't know, I'm Jared Falk, and I'm here today with my host,
me.
Jared Falk. I was going to say me. I am the host. I have actually like a lesson layout here, and I put host because I thought I'd be able to have a host for this, but it's just me. You're stuck with just me today. And this is going to be a fun one. So this lesson is all about discussing the new Independence Made Easy course. Some of you might have some questions about that. But mostly, what I want to do is kind of go through some of the stuff that I'm going to be teaching throughout the course. So whether you sign up or not, it doesn't matter. This lesson still has a lot of really good independence tips for you. All right? So before that, we get started, let's just talk a little bit about some of the gear, just like we do in all of our special Drumeo lessons. I got all the new Evans heads on the drums. As you'll see, there's the UV1 heads. Great sounding drum heads. Actually, I'm very, very impressed. First time I've played them, these heads sound fantastic. Okay, I'm using my Yamaha Recording Custom kit. I got my Donette snare, it's titanium snare drum, all Pisces cymbals, and my Vic Firth drumsticks. Okay, so just for those of you that might ask, let's just kind of get that out of the way right now. But I work with some fantastic companies that I'm always very, very grateful for. So let's talk a little bit about independence and drumming independence. Now this is something, it's an area of your drumming that you can choose to work on. One of the many, as you know, right? We have musicality, we have groove, we have dynamics, we have technique, hand technique, foot technique, we have learning new songs, we have playing with other musicians. There's so many areas of your drumming that you can choose to practice and get better at. One area that I have really kind of loved to work on personally is independence. And it's actually, I would say there's two areas that I absolutely love it, and it's almost a little bit addicting to work on these sorts of things because they're so quantifiable, right? How much independence you have in the drum set, it's really easy to tell. You play something, you play an exercise or something that someone written, if you could do it, great, you have that independence. If you can't, well, you need to develop that independence. And that's what I love about something like this, is it's really easy to know what you don't know and what you do know. When you talk about something like musicality, well, how do you know when you've become more musical? It's really, becoming more musical is a result of developing all these foundational tools, things like technique, things like speed and fluidity around the kit, things like independence, and stuff like that. So musicality is really a result of all that. Now you can hone that and practice that through being really, really intentional about playing with other musicians, about playing to music, about studying different genres. There's many things you can do to practice that, but it's not as easy to know that you went from point A to point B, right? So Independence Made Easy was basically a kind of a course that I created, and I started going through it with my students around 3 years ago. If you guys know Brandon Toes, he just released a lesson on our YouTube channel, and he's part of the Drumeo team here. He goes to school during the year, and then he comes back and works throughout the summer. But he was my first kind of guinea pig on this, and then I went through it with many of the VIP students. And throughout those times, I found some stuff that worked, and I found some stuff that didn't work, right? I found things that students were understanding and things that students weren't understanding. So I was able to really kind of craft the course as something that's good for students and as well as something that's been really good for me. When it comes to the exercises, the exercises, there's nothing like absolutely revolutionary that's going to completely change your life. You'll look at some of the exercises that I present, and you might think, oh, I've heard that before. And might be the case in many times. So it's like a reorganization of many of these ideas that I've learned from so many different instructors. And I basically, I could have written a 500-page book on independence. No joke, it could have been easy. I could have done it in a couple months. But the point wasn't to just give you a whole bunch of exercises, right? The point was to give you the exercise that I think you need based on my teaching experience, my working with students and my teaching online, give you the exercises that you need, and then kind of you remove the ones that maybe aren't as important right now, or maybe you'll want to get to them someday, but right now you just are looking for something very, very focused and very, very simple to kind of progress through. And so that's what Independence Made Easy is. It's something I've been going through. I still use it for myself. I still use the concepts in it. I have not necessarily finished it or reached like the peak of the mountain, but like everything in drumming, it's all about the climb. It's not really about getting to the top. So let's get into some different areas of independence that I do cover throughout the course. Now the course, it's 26 weeks. We're starting, I believe, in a few days, but depending on when you're watching this video, it might be already started. And in that case, I don't know whether you can still sign up or whether you can't. I don't know, but you can always just email us to ask. So with the 26-week course, you get one new lesson plan per week. And I call it a mission. Right? This is your mission if you choose to accept it. And if you accept your mission, that is your plan, and that's your practice plan for the week. Now you can choose to just practice that, or you can choose to practice something a little bit that along with something else, right? You don't just have to practice your independence, because like I said, there's many, many other things that you can also go over. But let's talk about a few of the areas and the ways that I develop independence, and these will come out throughout the next 26 weeks for those of you who have joined up and are starting that course. I know there's lots of you probably here that are starting it, watching this live, and lots of you probably watching this afterwards in the archives, and you're like, I signed up, and it hasn't actually started yet. We're just kind of gearing up for it. And so these are some of the things you're going to see throughout that course, organized in a little bit different way. So let's kind of go through it. Now, the first way that I kind of really love developing independence is using ostinatos. And I've talked about this before in past lessons. But this is kind of my go-to for anything that I'm playing when it comes to ostinato with the feet. If I'm practicing a new ostinato with the feet, I have a set routine to where I kind of quantify my comfortability with that.
Works for me.
Works for me. I quantify my comfortability with that. I can't say it. Let's get some water. I quantify my comfortability.
It works, man.
Screw it. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. With a pattern based on playing rudiments over top. So let's say you have a bossa nova bass drum pattern. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. So that's your pattern. Now over top of it, I'm first just going to play 16th notes. Next, I'll play 16th notes, same note value, but I'm going to play doubles. And then next, I'll play single paradiddle. And you can continue working your way through the other rudiments very, very easily. You can add flam accents and flam taps and all the radom cues and all that stuff. But really, the singles, doubles, and single paradiddles, that's a big kind of part of my drumming repertoire. Like the type of music I play involves a lot of those simple and most basic rudiments. And so those are like the three that I go to really ensure that I have that ostinato, I have this level of independence. The next thing I can try is just putting them all together, okay, and moving it around the kit. So I might play singles for a few bars, I might play doubles for a few bars, and I might play single paradiddles. There's not a set amount of time you have to do it. Just do it for as long as you feel comfortable, then change to the next note value, or the next rudiment, and really focus on that even transition. Okay, so let's start with the feet. So now you've got a really cool kind of solo type pattern that you can build off of. It's fun to practice this sort of thing. It's not boring to practice this independence. And I almost feel like I said, a lot of the tools that we develop, your musicality is a result of how well you've developed those tools. So if you increase your level of independence, you're going to naturally increase your level of musicality because you'll be able to do more things. You'll be able to call on more tools that you have in the toolbox. So the next ostinato I like to play is kind of like a tumbao bass drum pattern. So what I do is the bass drum hits on the ah of one and the and of two. One, one, one E and a two, and three and a four, and one E and a two, and three and a four, and one E and a two, and three and a four, and one E and three and a four. So as I play that, I come in and out. You'll hear times when it's, oh, is the independence there? As I try and play different combinations and different orchestrations using those basic patterns. But this is a very, very simple test that you can just give yourself. If you're someone that struggles with soloing or struggles with creativity, developing this level of independence is going to really, really open up your creativity. You'll be able to play more things just because once you learn something, I just heard this the other day, the back part of your brain is kind of like the autopilot. The front part is where you have to really focus on things. And so if you can get the ostinato to the point where it's just on autopilot, and that's at the back part of your brain, and then you can get your hands to the point where it's also the back part of the brain, and it's just kind of on autopilot, then all you're really having to think about is the different orchestrations and the music that you want to create. And so it's really about the comfort level, the comfortability level of those patterns. See what I did there? Huh? Pretty good, eh?
I like it.
Yeah. So, and then you can go to more complex ostinatos. So I like the 3-note ostinato, which was made famous by Neil Peart. So you can kind of, the sky is a limit with what you can choose to do. I've been practicing longer ostinatos with the feet, and I would totally bomb if I actually tried those right now, so I'm not going to try them. But there's some like longer ostinatos you can do that sound really, really cool. So give that a try if you can. Now the next thing I want to talk about, and this is something I've seen coming up on Drumeo more recently, which is really, really cool, and that is the incorporation, man, all these $10 words, seriously. The incorporation of the left foot, okay? I know when I got to the point in my drumming where I saw my left hand was just kind of my snare hand, I was just kind of sitting there most of the time, So I started putting my left hand in more places, and as I really was intentional about that, it just naturally started to work its way into my vocabulary. Same thing I'm doing with the left foot. I'm practicing on putting it on the downbeats, so on all the 1, 2, 3, 4, the quarter notes, the upbeats, so the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then all the 8th notes. Okay, and this is another great way for you to quantify your independence. So let's say you know a beat. Let's just come up with a simple beat, just the most simple beat. So kick on 1 and 3, snare on 2 and 4. Now, how well do I know that beat? Well, let's put the hi-hat on quarter notes. Now let's put the hi-hat on the upbeats on all the ands. Now let's put the hi-hat on all the eighth notes, so right in line with my right hand. And really, you can take that as far as you want to go. So if you want to play, or if you learned this more complex beat and you realize your left foot is kind of just sitting there, your hi-hat foot is sitting there, well, practice putting in some of those different elements into it, and you'll really find that it gives you a better sense of time, and it reinforces the time, right? So if you're playing a groove that's a little bit more open, let's try something like... It's really good to glue that together with the hi-hat. So let's see if I have it. I just made that up. So we'll see if I can actually do it. So I take the groove and start to put it through the progression with the left foot, first on quarters, then on upbeats, then on all the eighth notes. And just something as simple as that can really have kind of a big difference on the independence and the grooves that you can just naturally play, and play very, very effortlessly, right? What we want to try and do is get the majority of your repertoire that you play, you want to be able to almost play it on autopilot. So when you go to play a gig, or you go to play anything, you're not having to constantly just focus so intently to the point where you're making mistakes. Okay, I'm still struggling with this sort of stuff. For some reason, when I'm in the practice room, it's easy. I can do lots of things, but when I get to the point where I have to play it in front of people, for some reason, it just falls apart. And I think that's because my comfort level, and Benny Greb sometimes describes it as having headroom, right? You need to make sure that if you need to play at this level, make sure you can play at this level, right? So you're not playing at your maximum, and then if you go just a tiny bit above that, now you're hooped and you're just like crashing and burning. So let's move on to the next section. So the next section is kind of testing our independence using our lead hand. Now this isn't something that this concept isn't something I came up with. I believe this concept is popular from, Gary Chafee books, and it's popular from going through the syncopation book with Ted Reed. A lot of teachers have their own way of teaching this sort of thing. I kind of teach it with a few basic patterns. So there's a few weeks in Independence Made Easy where we cover stuff like this, but I don't go into it too much. So the first thing is just doing your lead hand, playing the lead hand on all three first 16th notes, then taking the fourth 16th note off. So it'll be 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. So that's my main beat. Now what I do from there is I add complexity with the other two limbs, but I add them very, very slowly, very, very methodically. I don't go from doing that to doing like tons of notes in the left hand. You don't go from to right? You just jumped up. It doesn't work like that. So what I would do is I would start by adding something simple in. And you can write this out. It actually really helps if you write this out yourself. Okay, so I know you don't want all that work. You just want the sheet music. You want someone to just give you the sheet music, and you don't have to write it out. But writing things out actually reinforces them more in your mind. It's a very, very good exercise to do when it comes to teaching and when it comes to learning. So what I'd like to do is just add a snare shot in on the ah of 2 and the ah of 4. Okay, so we're going to start with the basic pattern, and then I'm going to add that snare shot in. Wow, that sounded like completely different almost than the first groove we created. Now let's put the bass drum on the ah of 1 and the ah of 3. Start with the simple groove, the basic groove, then we'll move through the motions. So there you go. Now another hi-hat pattern I really like to do is it goes so lead hand on the downbeat, take the second 16th note off, and then fill it up with the rest of the 16th notes. So it goes 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1. Same thing. Let's start by just playing a simple groove. 3, 4. So now let's try and put, this is what I like to do, add one thing, right? Add one thing throughout both backbeats. So let's add a ghost note on the E of 2 and the E of 4. So what that's going to do, and it's going to be challenging because where you play that ghost note, first thing it's right after the accent, right? Because the accent is on counts 2 and 4. And the second thing is it's on a spot where there's no right hand, right? It's during that gap, which I think is really, really cool to do because like many of us, when we play like this. Your right hand or your lead hand always wants to follow your right foot. Taylor, you are on the money today with the camera switches. My goodness, everyone's giving this guy a round of applause. I see it out of the corner of my eye here, and it's like, right when I switch to playing, he's just like, oh, there you go. Okay. Okay, so let's start with the normal groove, the basic groove, then we'll add that 16th note on that E of 2 and the E of 4. So as I play that, it doesn't sound perfect to me. I don't feel like I have that at a comfort level that's, like I have it as good as I have just playing it without those extra notes in there. And so that's something I would continue to work on and continue to refine. Then, just like previous, we add in extra bass drum notes. And you could do this by simply like writing out the pattern and then choosing what you want to do. Almost kind of like give yourself an exam or give yourself a test. But however you want to do it, that's a really, really fun way to kind of test yourself and quantify your level of drumming, right? So next thing I like to do is, this snare I feel like is slipping a little bit, so let me just crank this up. is using swing independence. This is something that I was first kind of exposed to with Lionel Duperon. Some of you might know Lionel from the old days, the Rudiment videos on FDL, and he put up the drum rudiment system and stuff. And Lionel was a great teacher. He was patient, he was thorough. He taught me a lot of the technique that I know, like the Moeller method, the motions. He was very, very particular when it comes to that sort of thing. So I loved working with him. But he started getting me into swing independence, and I really wasn't playing a lot of swing. And I don't. No one calls me up and says, "Hey, we need a jazz drummer, and you're a guy." Okay? No one does that with me. But I get calls for other things, which I'm very grateful for, but not swing. But that said, swing is something I still practice. I use the jazz play-alongs. I love playing it. I love listening to it, but I'm not like a big swing buff. Now, when I practice this sort of thing, you know the basic pattern is so we don't have very much bass drum in there. You can choose to put the bass drum in on quarter notes really, really softly, just feathering it, but just don't even worry about it for now. Then what I'll do is I'm going to add the hi-hat foot. I'm going to play eighth note triplets between the left hand and the hi-hat foot. Okay? So it'll if I start it with my left hand, it'll go 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. And then I'll play that swing pattern over top of it. So it sounds something like this. Another great way just to test your independence, get your left foot more comfortable, get your snare hand, whether you play right hand or left hand, it doesn't matter. You still want to get that independence. And a lot of times we forget about this left foot, we forget about our snare hand, and our right hand our lead hand has a great amount of independence because it's hitting all the crashes, it's hitting all the accents, it's doing a lot of the work, and you're kind of actually, everything else is kind of following your lead hand and your lead foot. So really developing your left hand and your left foot, or your right hand and your left foot if you're left-handed, is a really, really good thing to do. The next thing I like to do with swing independence is putting the hi-hat on all of the trips, okay? Or the ands if you count triplets one and out. So it'll be 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Okay, so we'll start with the basic pattern and then we'll go into that. Okay, and I'd also recommend doing it with the metronome because you definitely heard me speed up there. Now the last thing I like to do is put the hi-hat foot on all of the lets. Okay, so the last beat within each triplet. So 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. A great little group of exercises that you can really practice, even if you're not a jazz drummer, that's so helpful to really start incorporating your left foot more and getting your left foot and your right hand more synced up and coordinated. So I'd really recommend you practice that a little bit. The last thing we're going to talk about, I believe, am I running out? Oh, we should be good, is the separation of hands and feet. Now really, what is independence, right? When you have lots of drumming independence, what do you have? What is it? Well, I think it's like the ability for each hand to kind of play on its own independently, right? So part of that is with separating the hands and them not needing to play on the same beat. Just like we talked about when we first started, your right hand and your right foot were always wanting to play together. And as you've gotten better, as you've practiced, that you've kind of like developed that independence so it's not even an issue anymore. Now we kind of need to do the same thing with taking that to the next level. And I've done this with just a very, very simple group of exercises to separate the hands and the feet. So right hand on the floor tom, kick, left hand snare, kick. Wherever you are right now, try that. The first time I tried it, it wasn't as easy as it looked. And for many of you, you might be like, oh, easy, no problem. And that's fantastic if it is. But the issue comes when you need to put the left hand and right foot. Because the right hand and right foot, I'm sure you can go like this. But adding in that left hand, loving me some cowbell today, hey? Okay, so the next thing I want to do, once you got that, and try this with me because you don't need a drum set for this. Okay? I'm doing it because I'm playing it on the drums because you can hear the different sounds. It's easier to hear the differences, but you do not need a drum set for this. So the next thing, we're going to do right hand, right foot, left hand, left foot. Hopefully that worked well. The final thing is right hand, left foot, then left hand, right foot. And so it's one of these, right? What is it? Tap your head, pat your belly, and rub your head like this? No. Okay, so what did I say again? Right hand, left foot, left hand, right foot. So start nice and slow. 3, and 4. And right hand, left foot, left hand, right foot. Right hand, left foot, left hand, right. Right hand, left foot, left hand, right. Right hand, left foot, left, right. Now you can continue to practice all the different permutations of that. You can start with your left hand, you can start with your left foot, you can practice it many, many different ways. But that kind of gives you a good kind of primer on some of the things that we're going to use to develop independence in the Independence Made Easy course, okay? So we practice ostinatos, We practice using different lead hand patterns. We practice using different groupings, especially groupings of 3, lots of groupings of 2. And I believe that about covers it. But it's not everything to do with independence, because literally the sky is the limit. So it's more like what I think is really going to help you to play a lot of just like modern pop music, top 40 stuff that everyone loves to play. It gives you the kind of a level of independence that's very, very practical. Like one of the titles I had for it was Practical Independence. I didn't like that as much as Independence Made Easy, but it sounded too vanilla, I found. So practical, it's very, very practical though. It's all the stuff is very, very useful. At least I found it useful, and the students I've taught have found it useful. So what I'd like to do now is go through, I'm gonna play a song, and then if anyone is watching, whoever's watching this live, if you have any questions, please get those in now. I'll kind of go through as much as possible. We'll stay here and answer questions as long as we can, and then the lesson's gonna be over. So let me play a little track for you. This is called Jazzy 6/8, also from the Drumeo members area, so you can find this drumless track inside of your account if you have one. All right, let's do it. All right, let's get into some questions and see who's all here. Juan Drum, Gaffa, Alex, Kim Drums, Aaron, good to see you, Dave, Nacho Beans, Johnny Duhast. I wonder if he can win a whack-a-mole with his non-dominant hand. Hey, that's pretty good practice. Dave Warfel says, what skills do I need to start? What equipment should we have? How will we ask you questions? Can we have you analyze our technique? So, when it comes to what skills do you need to start, I would say you should be past that beginner level. So you should know your basic beats. You should know your 3 main rudiments, your singles, doubles, and single paradiddle. But really, I give stuff for a beginner level, I give stuff for intermediate and advanced within each lesson. Each lesson that launches every week is around 20 to 30 minutes, and it comes with 1 page of sheet music. So I tried to keep it, I actually removed stuff from it all the time because my goal was not to make it as big as possible. My goal was to make it as refined as possible so everyone knows exactly what to do when to move on. When it comes to equipment, you can have electric kit or acoustic kit. Ask me questions. Right below each video, there's a button that says Ask Jared. So you hit that, it goes straight to my inbox. Normally, I get back to you within 24 hours. If there's a video link or something that you want to include in that, you feel free to include that. Generally, I'll answer any questions related to drumming or what you're studying or anything. I guess we can chat about whatever. So if you want me to analyze your technique or something, we can do that. Layout says, nicely done, my man. Groove on. Thank you. Core Stock says, for the independent practices, are we aiming for 60 BPM at first? I always use that as my starting point, depending on what note value the exercise is based on. So for exercises that are based on like eighth note triplets, I should say, you might want to go a little bit faster, like 70 or 80, because 60 feels very, very slow. Try playing a swing pattern at 60. It's actually a really good exercise to do that, but it's just slower, and especially when you're incorporating that left foot stuff in there. Richard James says, I'm left-handed, but trying to force myself to play right-handedly to make normal fills easier. Should I also try these independence exercises right hand, or just use my left hand as the strong one with mirrored orchestration? Well, first of all, like a lot of the stuff that is taught, I teach it based on grooves and fills, right? So like I said, I try and make it practical. So for the first lesson that I believe is launching, I think it's the 13th or the 16th, I forget the exact day, but we talk about a specific pattern, and this pattern can be played right or left hand lead. So it's not as big of a deal whether you are right-handed or whether you are left-handed. I would say it's up to you. You choose what you want to do, and it's up to how your kit is set up. If you're a left-handed drummer that's playing open-handed like this, so your bass drum is with your right foot, then you might want to lead the grooves with your left hand, or you might want to lead them with your right. I don't think it matters as much. It's just really your call. But I've been practicing this stuff both hand lead, right? So I practice it left hand lead and I practice it right hand lead. Lots of good questions, everyone. Let's grab some more. This one's from P&K. I came in late during the jazz section, but I'd like to try and switch the left-hand notes with the right-hand notes. I think it helps the left and right-hand independence over time. Did you suggest this? I may have missed this part due to tardiness. Nice finished play out. I suggested a bunch of things during this lesson. This lesson was really to talk about some of the ways that I develop independence and some of the ways we're going to be developing them within Independence Made Easy. Now, when it comes to leading with either hand, like I said, I do both of those. And when it comes to practicing like a specific feel or exercise, I think it's good to practice it both ways. When I had the Realistic Rock book by Carmen Appice, that's what I practiced a lot too when I was first starting out playing drums. At the end of the book, I got there and he said, okay, now go through it, left-handed. So I did that. Not like I'm a really good lefty drummer at all, but I think it's always good. Like, it's never going to hurt you to practice things left-handed and right-handed. Watch the Gabor Dornier lesson. He swings with his left hand, and then he'll also change to the right. I think he uses traditional grip in his right hand too. I don't even know if he's right or left-handed. Great drummer. Javelin Finn says, For the last part, I see those simple exercises as something simple to work on my coffee breaks at the office. Does it make a big difference if I start to do those without the drums and work with some kit, other exercises on my real practice time? Absolutely not. It's awesome. I sometimes think I get more practice away from the drum set than I do at the drum set. Because of the drum set, I got my cool stacker, I got my 22-inch China, right? I got my PSTX and my cowbell. So I just want to hit all this stuff all the time. So when I'm practicing, I'll be playing something. And then I'll get a little bit bored. Right, and so you get distracted more. Whereas if you're just playing at a chair, you can really kind of get some actual practice in. The separation of the hands and feet, that stuff can be done anywhere. So don't worry about that. CT online, was this practice as a piece, or did you do this kind of thing on the fly? The songs, I've been playing those for a while. Many of you have probably seen me play them before. So I kind of have a repertoire of songs that I can play and that I feel comfortable enough with to play them and film them, and they might be seen by hundreds of people or they might be seen 1 million times. Some of the videos I put out, I expected them no one to watch them, and they have over 1 million plays. If you type in how to play drums in Google, I bet you my video comes up, and it's very much a younger version of me, and it's got 2 or 3 million views. Okay, and I would never put that up now, but I find it really funny. So now I'm kind of a little bit more careful about my stuff, so I like to practice a little bit more. Jory says, can you give the difference again on the 2 ostinatos with the feet plays? Well, basically, you can choose any ostinato. Okay? The versions I gave were the bossa nova. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then the tumbao. 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4 and the 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4 and the 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4 and then playing 16th notes, singles, doubles, and single paradiddle over top of that. Smedian? Hi Jared, is there any kind of certification for the course? Where is it starting? It's starting inside of Drumeo. I believe it's somewhere on the 13th or 16th. And we're only leaving it open until the end of January. So you could technically get in at the end of January and just be a couple weeks behind, which is fine. It's not a big deal, because I'll be there for the next 6 months to answer any questions you have. So the Ask Jared button below the video goes directly to my email, and we can talk about whatever you're struggling with or whatever you need help with. So that's kind of the time frame that I'm committing to have that sort of level of service. So it's a little bit different in that it's not just a library of videos. It's really something where I love for you to share your videos with me. I'd love for you to communicate with me for the next 6 months and ask any sort of questions that you have. Certification for the course, there's nothing official yet, although it's actually not a bad idea, but I'd have to give you a really, really rugged test to make sure that you actually did all your practice. Charles Mancini says, is there a list of what will be covered per week and per lesson? There's no list of what we're covering. It's more of we call it week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And so every week you get something a little bit different, but something that also builds off the previous week. So it's called Independence Made Easy, not Independence is Easy. Okay? So it starts actually quite challenging. You're probably going to find that you're really struggling that first week. And I'd really encourage you to power through because the second week will get a little bit easier. And the third week will get a little bit easier. And you'll find that maybe you consider yourself a beginner, but by the 12th week in, you're playing all the intermediate level stuff that I'm giving, right? So you might find that your progression within the course goes a little bit quicker than you expected if you put in that initial time, okay? It's not gonna happen just from you buying it. Some people sometimes ask me that, say, hey, if I buy this course, will it really help me get to the next level? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. What'll help you get to the next level is you actually practicing, okay? Scotty J says, any major concerns if most of my practice will be done on a DW Go Anywhere kit? The only concern there is to make sure you have something set up for your left foot or your hi-hat foot. Okay, because I know those kits, they come with the bass drum pedal, and you might say, oh, use a double pedal. Sometimes to have a different sound source is really good because it trains your mind more on what is actually happening, right? Because sometimes you'll play something, and then you try and play the exact same notes, but on a different orchestration, you find you can't do it because your mind isn't trained to do that. It's not used to hearing that sort of thing. So I would suggest having some sort of pedal on the left, whether that's a wood block, whether you actually set up a hi-hat with I think you can get those the rubber hi-hat cymbals as well. That would, I think, be very, very helpful so you could have a different sound source for your left foot. Spike Kelly says, how much do you practice with just your kicks, or do you always incorporate your hands in with your kicks? I just, as of the last couple years, I don't play double pedal. I just have been playing a single pedal. The style of music I play doesn't really ever require double pedal. I've been asked in the studio one time, and I didn't do a very good job of that session. I think they had to fix a lot of my notes. And so it's double kick is it's a commitment to get it to the point where you can really just easily throw it in there naturally. And so I found that with my drumming, I have so many other things that I need to work on instead of that, so I've always just prioritized those other things. But when I practice, I will generally, I don't necessarily just focus on one thing, although sometimes I might be like, okay, I want to get my bass drum faster. So, I think there's this one exercise. So I work on something like that, and you can tell it's a little bit rusty, and I get that bass drum foot a little bit more comfortable. And it could just be a warm-up or something like that. I also do stuff with the hands. So like Taylor was seeing this before we started. I have this one thing where I go... and every time I hit the rims, I swear really, really loud. See? So that's like one of my little warm-ups and stuff. Sometimes that's just, you could consider that just more hands, but there's a little bit of bass drum in there. Javelin says, what time the lessons start? Is it a fixed day of the week? It's a fixed day of the week, and all the dates are posted within there. So let me just bring it up, and I'll tell you exactly when it is. So the first lesson, January 13th. First one, January 16th. There's some pre-work that we do. I do a warm-up thing, I do a practice planner lesson, and a set up your practice space. So anyone can watch those. So if you click on Independence Made Easy, you can likely just go and you should be able to just go and watch those, because I talk about setting up your practice space. Very, very important, because you're gearing up for a time of productivity, right? Another $10 word. And you need to set up your practice plan. So like anyone who's successful in anything, they're very good planners. So you need to be a planner, right? Before I go into my practice session, I have planned out what I'm going to practice. I rarely will just go into my practice room with no idea about what I'm going to do. So like when I'm setting up this type of thing, I'll go in there knowing I'm going to practice this stuff so I can get better at teaching it, or I'm going to practice those songs so I can get better at playing them. And I go in there knowing that. And so there's lots of information on setting up your practice stuff. Bonzi says, so is this a new program for purchase or a Drumeo Monday lesson? Haven't seen many live lessons these days. This Bonzi, if you just got here, if you're watching this now, we talked about a bunch of ways to develop independence previously, but this is kind of talking a little bit about the course that's available for any Drumeo students now, called Independence Made Easy. So you can go to the Drumeo drum shop. It's in the navigation, so just hit menu, hit drum shop, and then you'll see it there. And you might even see it somewhere else on the website. But we don't just like put ads everywhere. So ZX9R Dan might be out of context. If so, just ignore. Well, I'm not going to ignore it. So have you had any drum-related injuries like tendonitis or other related issues where you're able to fix them without stopping the drums altogether? The most I've had, like I've cut myself grabbing cymbals, and I've hit myself on the hands and bruised. I've had big bruises in my legs from my snare drum being too low. But I really haven't had any injuries. So I've been playing for, I think, more than 20 years now. And I would credit that to just at the early age, I had lots of really, really good teachers and who really kind of just, my first teacher even wasn't a big technician, but he still told me how to hold the sticks right. And just having that as your foundation can make all the difference. Then someone like, I've seen people just gripping your sticks too tight, and now you're bashing the drums, the vibration coming through there into your hands and stuff. It can really affect you negatively. And so if you start from the beginning holding holding the sticks loosely, playing, in a relaxed manner, it can just make a big difference. So there's times when I was like super tense, but then within the first 2 years, I got that worked out with Lionel, and Mike taught me. So Jan says, I wish to register for the course. Awesome. Okay, so you just go to the drum shop and click on Independence Made Easy and go ahead and add that to your account. The first lesson is on January 16th, and there's some pre-work in there for you. Ash Pearson says, Jared, no question, but thank you for offering this excellent course. Well, that's very kind of you, Mr. Ashley Richard Pearson. Zombie says, is this part of the 26-week course? Today is not part of the 26-week course. Today we're just talking a little bit about it. And I showed some of the ways that we go through independence within the course. Now, like I said before, the course isn't a bunch of new exercises that I've created. It's actually really hard to create something brand new. Really hard, or almost like there's a saying, there's nothing new under the sun. Because if I create something that I say is a brand new exercise, it's likely that someone else has done it before. So it's a reorganization and a reimagination of some of the ways that I've been taught over the years. And it's kind of like a concoction of what I've learned from many, many different teachers teaching on Drumeo, all the way back from when I just started out playing drums. Dave Werfel says, what if we fall behind? I travel for work and miss some weeks. Can we squeeze 2 weeks into one? What I would suggest you do is stay on track and do one lesson per week. Okay? If you get behind, just like some people are going to start 2 weeks behind anyway, so it's not a big deal in that respect. But what's most important is that you say, every week I'm doing this, right? So you travel for work for 4 days, you just take that time out of the week and just make sure that every 7-day window that you're available to practice, you're practicing this sort of thing. Once that 7 days is done, move on to the next 7-day window. So you might be a little bit off from what everyone else is doing, but I think you'll be fine. Martin says, what would be the ideal amount of time to practice independence weekly? I'm on quite a busy schedule and just worried I won't have enough time to practice it enough if I purchase the course. Here's the one thing. We know that everyone is tight on time. I'm tight on time. Okay? I have 2 kids. If you watch the promo video, you'll see in there, I'm tight on time. I have 2 kids. The Drumeo stuff here keeps me busy. I like to hang out with all of our staff. I like to do, fun things with my friends. I don't just sit and practice drums 8 hours a day. I don't necessarily want to do that. But I still love playing drums, and I love sitting down and learning something new. And so for me, part of the success of that and the excitement towards that is going in and having something that I'm going to do, having something pre-built. And so whether you practice 20 minutes a day or whether you practice 8 hours a day, what's most important is that you go in there knowing what you're going to do. Most Drumeo students, I would say, are noodlers. They go in and they kind of goof around. And then they're like, I'm not getting any better. And it's like, well, yeah, you're not. Because you're really not planning out things properly. There is a time to goof around and experiment and be creative, for sure. But then there's the time to have your plan and stick to it. So I would say, try and get 20 minutes a day in, right? But if that's impossible, don't feel guilty, right? Don't feel guilty about it. Get as much as you can in, and some days you'll find you do more, and some weeks you find you do hardly at all. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to feel guilty. 10 Bird, he says, outside of teaching, what and where do you play? I have a group of friends that I play with and jam with. I play in church every once in a while. I used to play in church a ton, like 4 or 5 times a week. And I used to play in lots of wedding bands and stuff. And then I do the odd session from here and there. But I also play a lot at Drumeo now. Nacho Bean says, when will the lessons be uploaded in the archive? Last time I asked, it usually gets 1 to 3 days. Is it still the same? Independence Made Easy, the lessons are all pre-scheduled to come out. All right, so this lesson, when it gets in the archives, because you're watching it live, I'm not exactly sure. It should be 1 to 3 days. But Independence Made Easy, they'll always launch at the same time on the same day. Danimal says, how long will the videos be up after the 26 weeks? Will I be able to go back and try the lessons again months or more later? Once you purchase your access for the next 6 months, you'll have those lessons for life. Okay? The only thing that'll change between the first 6 months and after that is the little button that says Ask Jared will disappear because I can't continually invest time. Right now, even now, it's hard for me to keep up with everything. I know there's a lot of hype around the course and stuff, but I like to go in there and answer questions in the comments, which I haven't done today yet, so I still have to go do that. And I haven't answered all my emails yet today. So for me, like, I want to work with a group of students every 6 months. And so you might find after 6 months we'll re-release it for a new group of students to come in, and they'll be able to interact, and I'll be able to help them with their drumming. They can send me links to their playing. We can chat about gear. We can chat about independence lessons. Hopefully, I'm really hoping that everyone practices. So that's basically the only thing that's different. Other than that, you will have lifetime access to the material. So you don't have to worry about that. Once you pay, you have lifetime access. Once it's $197, once that is paid, it's done. So you can choose to pay, I think it's 2 payments or 5 payment plans, or you can just pay it all up front. So, okay, one more question and then we're gonna be done. Oh, he says, Lisa says, glad they'll always be available. Exactly. So thank you all so much for watching. It's interesting not doing a lesson with Dave here. I don't really have anyone to bug. And Taylor, you guys can't see him, otherwise I'd totally bug him in front of you. But
not too bad, right?
if you want to check out Independence Made Easy, it's available till January 31st, 2017 at midnight. And then we are removing it for sale. It will not be opened again for at least 6 months, possibly more. Okay? So if you want to get in and sign up, please do so now. We'd love to have you. I would love to work with you. Whether you ask me questions once a week, once a day, it doesn't matter. I would just really, like, I've been doing this for, I think, almost 15 years now. And so it's fun to do something a little bit different. And the Independence Made Easy is a little bit different than anything else we've ever done before. And so I'd love for you to check it out. And so thanks for watching. Mr. Taylor, everyone's giving you a big round of applause. You killed it today.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. All right. So thank you all so much. We'll see you later.